Trey.
This is a show.
A show.
We're siblings. We talk about shit. That might be the name of the show. We
talk
haven't
about
decided
shit,
yet,
yeah.
but that's a candidate. It's a strong candidate. Yeah. And today we're talking about Food Wars.
Food Wars.
Shokugeki no Soma. First season only, because I haven't seen the second season. He has.
I've delved a bit into it, yeah.
Just watched it last week on subtitles. I haven't seen the dub yet. Have they done a dub?
I don't think they've done a dub yet.
Yeah.
Most of the dubs are coming out of Funimation, so
Okay.
it's right now Crunchyroll's property, so I think Funimation might get their hands on it eventually.
All right, cool. Yeah, well, we talk about our opinions, give our opinion, and I guess we'll give a kind of a review of it as well.
Somewhere along the way,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, you get our opinions gradually.
Yeah, more so it'll probably be us hashing out stuff we've seen, things we liked, things we disliked.
Yeah,
just
probably some arguments in there too.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. All right, so.
So first impressions overall.
I loved it, but I've been heavily sold it from probably about a week into it. All the different media I watched, all the different videos that subscribed to, all those different people were going, oh my god, this thing looks great, I love it. I watched a whole bunch of YouTubers, and they were like, yeah, definitely, if you got Crunchyroll, go ahead, get this thing, see it, because it's pretty awesome. And then I tried to rope you into it. So
Yeah, I got there eventually. Yeah.
So how did it go for you, since you got basically kind of like roped into it, where I told you to sit down and watch?
So I used to be really big into anime when I was in high school, and I haven't really. I kind of fell out after college, where I was like, yeah, it's a little like repetitive. Those stereotypes, those tropes, kind of like get to you to the point where you're like, all right, whatever. But so Trey was like, oh no, this is actually really funny, and there's a lot of great humor in it, and it's just this cooking show, and it actually subverts some of these tropes that you found annoying. So I started watching it. I watched it on Crunchyroll, all in the span of about 2 weeks. And I liked it. I actually had a lot of fun. It's been a while since I've had an anime that I was like, yeah, I'm into this. I wouldn't say it was perfect, but it was definitely funny.
Well, and one of the things we were talking about earlier was that it's not one of those compelling anime to make you be like, oh my god, I can't wait to see what's next.
Yeah.
It's like a really nice, like, lay back, here we go, I'm just gonna relax, enjoy something. And it's fun that way. It's not something I'm like, oh god, I don't know how they're going to resolve this next week.
Yeah. You're not exactly ever worried that someone's going to get kicked out of school. Oh, we should probably give a synopsis of the show, too, for people who haven't seen it.
Yeah.
So Shokugeki no Soma is about a kid who, he and his dad work and own this diner in this little shopping center in, they're not in Tokyo, but they're in Japan somewhere. And Dad pretty much says, what you gonna do after middle school? And Soma's like, well, I'm gonna quit school and come help you with the shop. And Dad's like, don't think so. So Dad takes off, closes the store, and says, you're going to this elite cooking school, which they don't really explain how he got like the acceptance invite in the first place. Yeah. I mean, you never get the impression he's a particularly smart character, so you're not sure how he did on the entrance exam. Anyways, he goes, and his cooking is like just so amazing that he gets in on his cooking ability alone. Yeah. And he kind of makes some enemies, particularly this god tongue girl who has the most sensitive palate in the world, named Arena, who's kind of got a massive bug up her ass about him. And he makes friends, like, a lot of elitism, but it's an elite school. I can see how you'd have, like, elitism in an elite school. Yeah, and he's kind of like the scruffy go-getter,
from the gutter,
from the ghetto,
yeah.
but sort of not, I guess.
Yeah.
He's not, he's middle class, he's not poor. Like, you find out later his dad's like a world-famous chef.
Yeah, well, that's probably one of the funnier things, is that, here's his dad kind of like milling about in a diner, and
takes trips to New York.
Yeah, all of a sudden, and
cooks in France,
and people are discarding their 100-day fast to eat his food.
Yeah,
and he's got some ridiculous kind of renown, and you're like, why were we never presented this to begin with?
Yeah.
So.
His name's Joichiro, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's not winning any Parent of the Year awards in my book, but maybe get into that later in the review. He's like all anime dads. He's like seems to like fucking disappear eventually.
Well, yeah, it's almost like the common trope of anime. I mean, almost obviously is, hey, so parents really aren't all that fun. So how about we just get rid of the parents?
They just leave their child there.
Yeah.
You know, have fun, 14-year-old. Don't burn the house down.
Or it's even more hilarious when they have them move into their own apartment and they're just like, you're gonna live on your own in your own apartment, and we're gonna like send you money. Obviously, I don't know if that's like hugely common.
I actually don't think that's very common in Japan. I think it might be a tiny bit common. Like you it's not unheard of.
So.
I lived there for like 2 months, so not a year.
I thought it was more.
No.
6 months or something.
No, that was England. I was in England for 6 months.
6 months. Okay, the trip to Japan was only okay.
Own brother would have a better memory, but yeah, I don't think it's actually very common, but it's super common in anime. For some reason.
Yeah, it's every kid.
Yeah.
Well, and then obviously that leads to the hijinks that normally occurs. But I think this gets around that pretty well because it sends them off to a boarding school.
Yeah, it does send them to a boarding school.
So it's like, hey, this is where you're going to live anyways. It's more standard, I guess.
And the Shokugeki part of Shokugeki no Soma is this cooking battle that you have to have with other students and occasionally faculty.
Yeah.
The rules seem a little bendy. So you challenge that person to a cooking duel. And you have like 3 judges or 5 judges. Again, the rules seem bendy. But the majority of judges say they like your thing. Then the person you challenge suffers a penalty, and you get a benefit. And if you lose, then you get the penalty, and they get the benefit. And that can be expulsion. That can be,
whatever everyone agrees
tearing
to.
down a building. Whatever the pre-agreed upon price was. Yeah. The wager.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be like there's one price and one penalty. It can be very situational, like you said, to like I get expelled, but if I win, all you have to do is resign from your position. You're not necessarily, so it's not necessarily the same exact thing.
It doesn't have to be the same way.
Yeah, you can tweak it.
So he shows up at the school and he starts challenging some folks, and they challenge him.
And he first things off, he pisses everyone off.
Yeah, he pisses everybody off at the opening entrance speech that they give at the beginning of the year to all the students. He like gets up on a stage and he's like, I'm going to be part of this elite group within this elite school called the 10 Chairs. What are they? What is that called? Elite 10. Yeah. And I'm going to get on it, and I'm going to be the very best. And
calls everyone out for being like, you've never cooked for people.
You've never served for customers.
Yeah,
you've never cooked for customers, so you don't know what it's like, so I'm definitely going to win.
Yeah. He brings his own like kind of elitism out, I guess.
Rubs a lot of people the wrong way.
Yeah.
This show has a lot of characters.
It does,
and it's primarily about the food. Like, yeah. I mean, the character relationships are there, but they're not great. Like, all the boys in this show have the minimal of personality.
Which is something you were having issues with earlier.
Because I like strong characters.
And you thought it was like you're going to project onto this character. And when I really think that the lack of character is just because they're focusing so much on the food. It's not necessarily like, hey, project on this person, imagine you're this person. I think it's like they just don't have any character because they're focusing so much on the food.
They focus really heavily on the food, and it actually drags a little in places. Like, unless you are just the biggest foodie, watch Food Network all the time. The reason storytellers want that drama and that character there is so that you have someone you can follow. Like, you want a character you relate to, so that you feel invested in what's going on. And that's a little thin on the ground here. Soma is just boring. He just is as a character to me. I know you kind of like him, but I
like him being bland.
Yeah, he's a bit bland. He's very much that tabula rasa character. Like, insert your fantasy here.
You see, I feel like it's almost the main character really of the show is actually the food, because it's the only thing that develops and changes. What he cooks, like, he's going through all these evolutions. You even see it right now in the part that you're at. You see it much more later, but you see it right now in the first season. You see him go through this, like,
the first season ends on a cliffhanger too. What was up with that?
Well, I kind of got irked by that because I was there when it cliffhangered and there wasn't no
like,
second season.
Middle of a fucking competition. They're like, oh no, it's over. End of the season. Hope you liked it.
Well,
Maybe we'll come back.
They went on this mid-season hiatus too, which was really frustrating because you're watching and like all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, cool, we're gonna take like this week off and maybe like next week. So we'll see you when we get back. And you're like, what? No, you can't just do that.
Yeah, so you watched it as it was coming out.
Yeah. So I actually followed it as it was coming out, and that was,
I watched it all. It was like long.
Yeah. So that was pretty frustrating, but yeah, it's like even through the tournament, you see him go through constantly this evolve process of he goes, oh, I really don't know that much about this. Okay, let me learn everything there is to be about this.
Yeah.
So
he develops as a cook.
All right, well,
We're saying the food was the main character.
Yeah, the food was the main character, and so because that's the only thing that really evolves. I mean,
yeah, like if you're talking about if you're looking for a character arc, there aren't many. Like a few people maybe have changes of heart. There aren't much in the way of character arcs. Soma is kind of arrogant and combative and competitive, and those are the few personality traits they do give him.
Yeah.
And he kind of stays that way for the entire first season, but what he does do is he realizes that he has more to learn as a chef. Yeah. That is the kind of total of his character development. He learns he has more to learn as a chef, and that he can learn from others, and the people in his school aren't worthless, and that's kind of...
I think... Well, another thing you were talking about a lot of the tropes, and this actually plays a lot of the tropes and then actively, try to...
They do the harem thing, though.
Yeah,
they totally
but that's where I think...
That's something that annoys me. I'm not a harem fan.
It's been getting grating on me recently with a lot of the anime I've recently watched, just because I am getting tired of it as well. You can't have any dynamic story to the harem. It's like... What I mean by dynamic is it's just going to be the same fucking progression every time. He's going to go through, once he wins the girls and he's got his harem, then each time he's going to have one girl get unhappy, deal with that problem. One girl get unhappy, deal with that problem.
Yeah.
And it's this constant repeat, recycled, rewash of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think the last serious harem anime I watched was freaking Tenchi Muyo, back when it was on Toonami or some shit. I've seen a lot of the reverse harem ones though, and they do the same thing they do here, where it's a bland main character, and the people around that character are way more interesting.
But I was gonna say that I think the fact that this has the characters, most of the characters, even the supporting characters, really are kind of bland, kind of lends it well to the...
They're a little 2D.
Joke. Yeah, but I think it lends it well to it being kind of a joke, because that's the way I always kind of viewed it, as... they're going through, and sure, he's got, meat girl,
she's my favorite character. For real, she is.
What is her name?
Nikumi.
Yeah.
Ikumi, but they all call her Nikumi, because Niku means meat in Japan. So they call her Nikumi, because she specializes in meat.
And got the biggest boobs.
Yeah.
But,
I actually love that, so one of the things, a complete tangent, sorry. One of the things about the show that bugs me is Irina's boob socks. Irina has boob socks. The girl with the god tongue. She's wearing her jacket and it's okay. First, I just have a huge chuckle every time I see them because I have to imagine her special ordering her chef jacket so that they have sewing indentations for her boobs. It's one of those things where cleavage doesn't bother me, but because boob socks are so weird, it distracts me.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't like it. I'm not against Ikumi, who's my favorite character, wears a bra all the time. And that's
only
it.
A bra.
She only wears a bra. She never wears anything except a bra. And I actually have no problem with that because they even address it. There's an episode, kind of in the teens, the late teens, I think it's 17 or something, where she goes to help out Soma at the diner that he's reopened temporarily to try and help the struggling shopping center. Yeah. And she's on her way to go visit him, and she stops by a storefront, and she sees her reflection with this normal outfit. She goes, should I have worn normal clothing? And she looks down and she's like, no, I'm happiest when I'm myself. And then she's like, so that's who I'm going to be when I go see Soma. Because she really likes him at this point, and she's wondering if she should try and impress him. And then she's like, no, I'm going to be myself. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they address the fact that she knows what she's wearing is inappropriate. Because I hate when they're wearing inappropriate things and nobody says anything.
Like a hippo sat down at the dinner table
and
and no
everyone's
one wants to
just ignoring it.
Yeah.
And that kind of bugs me with Ishiki, the RA character, where their reactions aren't big enough because he wanders around butt fucking naked.
With an apron. Just with an apron on.
Yeah. So she acknowledges it, and then she's like, oh, well, I could dress normally. I choose not to. This is who I am. I'm happiest in my bra and cut-off jeans. And I'm like, you know what? That sold me. Officially, Ikumi is now my favorite character. Just that a little... But yeah, okay, think about this. Your RA walks around your dorm in nothing but a apron. How comfortable would you be seeing your RA's nutsack on a regular basis? You would not be happy. No, you would not. Even if he's really hot like Ishiki is. Like, you would not be happy.
So, you pointed this out. How can so many people be wearing so little clothing around hot grease? Like,
I've flying grease everywhere. Oh, I think I'll cook naked today. Oh, it sucks when it hits your hand. Imagine how it feels when it hits something a lot more delicate.
Well, I mean, I don't cook like often, but when I do cook, it's still it's a pain, especially when it's all over your forearm.
Yeah.
And that's mostly where you get that hot grease splashing. But I can just sit there and imagine like. You're trying to cook, especially with almost every meal they cook always has some kind of pan-cooked meat. I mean, if I remember correctly, it's like they occasionally use some ovens, they occasionally use some like clay pots.
They use a lot of pans.
A lot of pans are used.
Sauteing, frying. Oh, they use fryers in a couple places.
Yeah, so it's like, especially because pans are constantly kicking off that grease. It's, it's hilarious to think about him sitting there, cooking in his little teddy apron and, just trying to, like, what is he, Matrix dodging the grease that's popping out at him? Because otherwise he should have, like, red dots all over him. Just like,
burns.
Look like he has a chicken pox or some shit.
That would be awesome, though, if they actually had a scene where he, like, Matrix dodges it. Again, that would be all it would take to make me happy.
Oh, really?
I would be like, I'm sold. Just give me an explanation. People, they acknowledge he's naked, but they're never, like, giving a big enough reaction. Like, there's, like, haha, that character's naked. And then there's, like, holy shit, the RA of my dorm never wears clothes. It's fucking weird. I know it's anime and supposed to be over the top, but, like, maybe that's one of the reasons why I kind of drifted from anime, is I want there to be some level of acknowledgement of the weird.
So, what I don't know if you started to know this. I definitely noticed this in the second season, but it kind of took me that long to really notice it. But like even like Ishiki and Nikumi, you don't really see them too much, or in their like really outlandish forms. Like you see Ishiki show up some to the battles, and he's like sitting there.
Oh, he wears his uniform at the battles.
But he wears his uniform. That's what I mean. It's like you're not seeing that ridiculousness. And I don't know if you noticed, but like even the like weird tentacles coming out and like groping the girls.
We haven't talked about that yet. The best part of this anime, hands down, what makes it is the animation. So the animation is beautiful, and I say like, oh, the main story is the cooking and everything. Well, that's important because the cooking is gorgeous. So and it's hilarious to boot. So what they'll do is they'll like have I think you said it was a porn
It was like a former
artist?
porn director.
Okay.
Former porn artist, I think, who got into this.
So, like, let's say, so Soma brings out this beautiful pan-fried rice, and he puts it down on the plate, and the person goes, and they take a spoonful, and they go, and their clothes burst off in the most ridiculous, over-the-top, like, just, what the fuck am I looking at style.
Or then you have his, like, crazy, like, disgusting concoctions, because his other favorite thing is to try to make something as disgusting as possible, and he goes up and feeds it to someone, and then they feel like, most of the time, it's some kind of squid. Some kind of squid or tentacle.
Yeah, so they can do, like, the tentacle
the like, cheesy, very, like, over the top, and so they're getting groped, and they're like, ew, this is disgusting.
I mean, that sounds really juvenile and stupid, and it kind of is, but it's so gloriously over the top. Like, this show doesn't back away from the ridiculous, it leans into it. Yeah. And that's what really makes it, is they lean into these ridiculous, over-the-top jokes.
But then they also have great timing, because it's not like...
Great timing.
They'll have a number of people take bites of something during the course of the show, and they'll have that kind of, like, orgasmic moan or whatever, and that kind of response, but
like it builds and builds until, like, somebody's having a full-on flashback of the time they lost their virginity.
But probably the best part about it is they'll go through 2 or 3 of just that. No clothes flying off, no flashback, just the person eating it and being like, oh my god, this is so good.
Yeah.
But then, oh god, probably at the most random point in the show, you can kind of feel a bit of a build up to it, but you don't always see it coming. And then finally, that's when they'll actually have all the clothes fly off.
Yeah.
So you'll have, it only happens once, and that's why I think it's a good treasure, because it's not every single time that clothes are flying off and you're getting this elaborate over the top.
Oh, and it's always related to the type of food that's being served. Like, I think my favorite one in the whole thing was when the creepy witch girl is brewing her concoction, and they're like, oh, it smells so nasty, and they take a bite, and they're like, but it's really good. And the more I eat it, the more the smell actually makes sense, and it's like, I want more. And then she's like, oh, it's chaining me up. And then you see them all, like, their clothes fly off, and they're all wearing BDSM gear.
Yeah.
It's like, for the food that seems like it would be terrible, but actually you really love it. Yeah, I thought that was hilarious.
So I think it really kind of treasures from that comedic timing. The ability for him to kind of step back and be like, when's the best place to put this in? Because he doesn't put it in everywhere. It's not like littered where you're stopping every 5 minutes or so to have an elaborate scene like that. It's, sometimes they're just quick, one and done, and it's like him trying to prove his worth, and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. All right, it's nice, made something good. And it kind of progresses the plot at a nice pace. But then, all of a sudden, out of fucking left field, you're going, holy shit, what did they just do? What? So that's probably where it comes in the best.
Yeah.
Is the fact that he slow paces it, times it in right. But I guess we're kind of getting back to where I was starting with this was, you see that less and less as the show goes on. It has a huge impact up front, and you love it, and you crave it. And as you get towards the end of season 1, you really see it more in season 2. Basically what ends up happening is that he really kind of edges off of it. It's still there, and it's great because it's still there. But it also no longer, because that's such a God, what is it called? It's basically like a big flash mechanic. It's like, there in an instant, blows up, huge peak.
Almost like shock humor.
Yeah. That's it. So the shock humor eventually goes away because you're trained on it. But because he edges off actually on it, then it feels actually still pretty funny, because you're no longer like, oh my god, this is just too ridiculous. I'm just tired of the same old gags. So
they keep him fresh.
So because he edges off of it, it really feels like he's not like that's the only gimmick. It doesn't feel like that's the only gimmick, and I guess that's why I really liked how it transitioned into its midsection, because the beginning has to be very large, impactful. That midsection is where you can lose a lot of people, because that's where I'm going. Well, it was kind of good at first. Kind of lost interest. I guess whatever. I can do without. I'm gonna go play some video games. I really don't care.
So, speaking of, what did you think of the last 4 episodes?
With the tournament going on?
Yeah.
In what way?
Okay, so they introduce a ton of characters. There's so many characters in this anime. And right at the last 4 episodes is this first chunk of this tournament, the autumn election. And there's a lot of new characters introduced, including a 15-year-old and a 34-year-old who have a really weird romantic relationship, like June and Hayama.
Oh,
Did that seem romantic to you?
No.
It seemed a little romantic to me.
It seemed like really, really oddly mother-son.
Okay, I could go for mother-son, but like
very...
he picks her up in his arms and he's like carrying her to her bed, and I'm like, okay, he's 15 again?
Well, okay. I guess I can see how you get there, because they draw her looking so young.
Oh yeah, she looks like she's 12. But she's 34.
And they reference it, and it's not, as solid as a reference I think I'd like, for them to be like, because it's one thing to be like, haha, here's a young-looking adult who's going to get mistaken for being a kid, but... It's just it didn't add anything for her to be looking like she's 12.
No, other than to make it maybe acceptable that she's got a thing with a 15-year-old.
No, I guess maybe it's there for like weird fanfic on the side.
Yeah, it's there for weird fanfic for people who have hot for teacher fantasies.
Yeah.
But it's totally what it's there
justify
for.
That. Yeah. But I mean, it's much more mother-son, and you get that a little bit more in Well, I shouldn't spoil.
Yeah.
But,
Okay. Yeah. Don't tell me about season 2 yet. Still waiting. But anyways, there's like the last 4 is just recipe after recipe after recipe with almost no character development.
Yeah.
Oh, they try and stuff some backstory in there right at the end of the series. I was like, I would have liked to learn this about these characters earlier. Like the glasses character from their dorm and Smoke guy.
Yeah.
Like, they show a lot of backstory in those last 4
Okay.
episodes. I'm like, this is the climax, guys. This is not the place for the backstory.
That's true.
So that actually
Felt
bored
a little
me a
out
little.
of pace. Yeah, it felt
I
a
got
little
a
out
little
of place.
bored the last 4 episodes.
I guess my thing is having gone as far as I've gone. It felt less like they were properly climaxing at the end of this story. It felt more like it was supposed to be the first 3 episodes of the next season, and someone just fucked up and was like, "Oh, this is the end, right?" Yeah, they're like, "This is the end, right?" And he's like, "I guess."
No, they're 24
I think
episodes
so.
actually.
Yeah. They're like, "Oh yeah, we're done," and the guy's like, "This isn't the right number, guys.
Yeah.
No, go back, we'll finish." And he's like, "No, this is where the story ends."
Yeah, right.
It's like,
yeah.
So there's probably an issue there with like some animator and some director.
It just feels like the writing wasn't planned out.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Because it really does feel like it's.
Is this based off of something, or is this a straight anime? I don't even know.
I'd assume it's based off of manga.
Yeah, most things are.
Yeah, I mean it's probably based off of some manga, but I guess the big thing about the autumn elections for me at that point is, for me personally, I got really engrossed in the cooking and the recipes that they were doing, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. So even though it did get a little kind of like probably that first part there of the autumn elections, well, the autumn elections as a whole really wasn't my favorite section of it.
Yeah. It's not
the
great.
stuff before and the stuff after, excellent. Fucking loved it.
Yeah.
The autumn elections just kind of felt a little kind of like. I mean, we were talking about like really bad tropes with sports animes just a bit ago.
Yeah.
And this is like one of those really bad like kind of like not necessarily like character tropes, but a story trope in general.
Yeah.
Because it's you see all anime, they've eventually got to have this big winter contest or fall contest, and it's like all
I wonder if
anime.
that's maybe common in Japanese schools.
Maybe
to have like a big thing in the fall.
Probably, but it feels like that. It feels like it's going back to one of those story tropes. It's like, oh shit, forgot a box to check.
Yeah.
So-
They do the school trip trope, but I actually like the school trip trope.
School trip was
The
good.
training camp.
Yeah,
I
that was
actually
pretty
quite liked
good.
that section. I thought that was very well done.
I mean, it was funny. It was
That was
fast paced.
that was
Kinda
the-
took them out of
You
the
kind of
second.
like get to know the characters really for
Yeah.
the first time, and it's like the stakes are high and they're interesting, and you're very involved. Yeah.
And well, not to mention, they do a good job of introducing some pretty key characters. In the teachers that they interact with,
Right.
especially I can never remember his name, but the stoic shaved head dude who's big
Dad's
muscle.
best friend from high school.
Yeah.
He used to be first of the Elite 10.
Yeah. The stoic. That was another thing they completely glossed over was how his Soma's dad is so intertwined with this community.
Yeah,
And they-
never mentioned it before to you, son, but totally a member
not to
of this
mention,
community.
Not to mention, it's like the school doesn't even know who the fuck he is. It's like, I'm sorry, if I
No,
came-
they do explain Dad changed his last name.
Oh,
They do
that's
say
right.
that. Dad,
That's right.
so they did take care of that. They're like, Dad changed his last name after he graduated, so that's why Soma's name isn't instantly recognizable.
But still, I would be like, at some point, you got to recognize, like, especially someone who made that big of an impact on your school and your legacy.
You're like,
You
you look an awful lot
Well,
like
yeah,
this
your
person
person I
who was
know."
super important 20 years ago.
Yeah,
And people stay around. Like the teachers have been there for like decades, so they remember.
But that's I'm glad you mentioned that, because the teachers also end up becoming a pretty big part of the story, and so I like how they set that up and they integrate them in with here you've got the teachers interacting with the kids, but they're also like you really do feel like you're starting to understand where the teachers' gripes are coming from, especially in the scene where he has the Shokugeki with the French cuisine expert dude.
Chapella or whatever.
Yeah,
his name
yeah,
is.
the guy who's like the big asshole. I just remember as the big asshole.
Wait, is this the guy with the pink hair and the glasses?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, no, that's not Chappelle. That's somebody else.
No, yeah. Chappelle's the French instructor.
Yeah,
No. I'm talking about at the actual camp.
Yeah, the guy who like won the Michelin star. In France. No, he's trying to win the Michelin star. In France.
No, he won one.
No, he won an award, but now he wants the Michelin star.
Oh well.
Because that was like his whole thing is he's stagnated.
Yeah, he's stagnated, and so they do a good job of. Here's why he's being an asshole is because he's literally got no aim and he's kind of taking it out on the kids. That's perfect. I'm like, okay, great explanation. Because otherwise, I hate it when anime go through and they're like, oh my god, why is this guy an asshole? There's no reason to be an asshole. Okay, there are asshole-ish people out there. Like, let's be honest, there are assholes everywhere. But there's no one who's that degree of an asshole and still willing to work with kids.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, there can't be...
Why are you a teacher?
Yeah. Why are you even, like, why did you even agree to do this if you're that much of a dick?
Yeah, have you not been fired yet?
Yeah, and so it reminds me of some old, like, slice of life anime that I used to watch where you have that asshole teacher who's, like, out to always cause trouble for the protagonist. Yeah, you're just like, what is your life? What is your goal?
Just enjoy it. It's like 80s movie style. It's like, do you just enjoy terrorizing children?
It's like the weird, like, gym coach who's out to get the protagonist in the fucking 80s movies.
No backstory explanation, just hates kids. Like the Trunchbull from Matilda. It's like, okay, it's just the way it is.
Yeah, you have no aim, you have no life.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
What was, ending themes. I love the ending theme songs in this one.
I've never been
The opening songs are good, the ending things are great. The first one's just catchy, and the second one is fucking hilarious. It's like a stalker song. I love it. It's like up there with like police watching you, you know?
Yeah. Well, I've never been much to like really care about.
Plus, just the phrase "sexy curry" is funny.
I know a lot of people really get into the opening songs, the intro animation, the closing animation, the closing song. I know a lot of people are into that. I skip them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm there for one thing. Yeah. I opened this up for one thing. Do I really need a minute of my life cut out by the same thing I've seen already 20 times now? No.
Yeah. I did like the opening themes were good. They got you pumped, but they weren't amazing. I love the ending themes though. I listened to those.
I think there's been a few anime in the past that I've seen where they made it worth my while because there's some kind of like opening storyline in it where they obviously you've got the music in the background, but they're doing something
interesting enough.
No, they're doing something specific to that day's episode.
Oh,
and they're doing it without voice basically. So it's like it's real interesting to see because when it's done, you see animators having to try to go back to almost black and white film style of how do I convey this with motion without,
dialogue. Yeah.
So I've seen a few. Mostly I see them in the, trapped in a video game ones because you see like, especially you really only see it in the very, very first episode because they're trying to get as much information into that first episode as possible. So you see the guy either falling through and here's the sound going, here's the music going in the background and you see him falling and he's staring at what he's about to kind of get into and so you're watching for that reason. I've seen other times where they've already established that in the opening part before the intro song, and then, afterwards the rest of the main body, but that intro song, he's like talking to some people trying to figure out where he is, stuff like that. So I have seen some people who've made it worth my while, but yeah, for the most part, I'm like, don't skip it.
What did you think about the voice acting?
Soma's fits him pretty well.
I agree.
Miss Godtongue,
Arena.
Yeah, she's
a little shrill.
Yeah, I mean, she's not bad. I mean, not my favorite. Not something I'm gonna beat my plowshed into a sword and go storm the castle with. But possibly, I guess, of the people I consider main characters is Pigtail Girl, Godtongue, and Soma.
Megumi? The braids?
Yeah, she's pretty much main character for those are like the three main characters I'd say because the rest kind of always come in and out. They're interchangeable, but you almost always see those three.
Well, those kind of like he's got Soma's harem is Megumi, I'd say Ikumi. I still think Arena's on the list.
Ikumi's on board. I think she's just like tagging along because he's a good help.
Yay, right, yeah. She's a little riding his coattails, which I do actually kind of like, and she proves herself, which I thought was good. I like Megumi too. Soma's so boring. I got to the point where I started shipping the female characters together. I was like, why don't we just cut Soma out of this equation and you two just go off and be a thing. Yeah, so I quite like the voice acting. I can't think if there's anybody who was really... Oh, the announcer girl. She's it's so annoying. It's funny because they show like the guys cheer whenever the announcer comes on, and the girls go Ira, and I'm like sitting there and I'm like, yes, Ira.
Not because like of jealousy, but just because she's like annoying as fuck.
Yeah, she's so annoying.
But I was glad they got rid of her eventually.
Yeah.
Like she just stops. She stops showing up. Well, you see that in the fall. You see, she like kind of disappears from the autumn elections, I think, as well.
No, she's an announcer for Team A. For Group A.
Yeah, but she's like, they don't have her really show up all that much. Like,
yeah.
Like that I'm like, okay, good. We're waning her out.
Phasing her out.
Yeah, because fuck that person. Jeez.
Alright, so what would you say is your favorite or the best and worst thing about the anime as a whole?
Best thing is definitely just the solid sense of humor and pacing.
Yeah.
I can't decide between one aspect. Pacing for me is a huge thing. I mean, we've talked about this in the past. It's the reason I can't watch old movies is because the pacing just doesn't agree with me, and it just bores the shit out of me if you take too long or if you go too fast.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't care about this anymore. So the pacing, but then the humor, I think, really factors into that because the humor was a huge part of the pacing. How often are you laying on the jokes? If you're going too many jokes up front and then there's nothing at the end, then sure, I'm laughing my ass off for the first 10 minutes, but then I'm bored.
Yeah.
So honestly, that was probably the best thing. Worst thing, I'd have to say, felt a little stale towards the, I think we talked about it, but it felt a little stale towards the end of the first season. It felt like it was starting to find itself a bit of a rut because it kept passing back and forth on the same... You know, it was basically, it was creating its own trench by walking the same path too many times.
Yeah.
So that was probably my least favorite thing. Basically the last few episodes are probably ones that, you know, if you want to speed through them, you can, because I don't think you're really gonna miss anything too vital or.
It's some backstory information and it's a lot of the cooking stuff. So if you really like the cooking stuff, you'll love those episodes.
So how about you?
Yeah, animation and humor for best, absolutely. And those two are very intertwined. The animation is the humor. It's great. It is on point. I've never seen anything like it. I love it. It's beautiful. Worst would be the slightly two-dimensional characters. I get really involved in stories for the characters. Like that's kind of what keeps me going. And some of the characters are good enough that I'm like interested in their stories. I want to learn more. Megumi, Ikumi, even Ishiki to some degree. I want to what else you doing?
Like Megumi, going back to her river village would be
cool.
cool.
Like she knows how to butcher that monkfish. Yeah. That was cool.
That was awesome.
Yeah. So those are characters that I want to learn more about. I wish Soma was a stronger character. Hopefully he develops into one in a later season. But for the moment, he's just a little bland. To the point where I kind of don't care what happens to him.
Yeah.
So, alright, let's wrap this up. What do you think? Out of 10. What's your score?
Well, I'd say situationally, like holding it against everything else that's going on, like concurrently with it, probably a good 9.5 out of 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Because given everything else that's been released and been going on, I know we've had some great things recently. We had One Punch Man, which took off.
Beautiful.
And ran.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Another thing with great sense of humor.
So that was, although they're still kind of relatively close. I mean, obviously not the same release time frame, at least I don't think. But because those two are kind of in the same time frame, it might be a little difficult. But because I'd say, you know, per cycle, per like full year cycle, I guess for me, there's usually about 4 or 5 that are really good. And so to put it up there, I think it definitely deserves that 9.5 out of 10. Taking it in the larger context of all anime I've ever watched, it probably gets downgraded just a bit, but only just a bit. I'd probably say it only drops to maybe 8, maybe high 7 out of 10. you know, like 7.9 out of 10 or something like that.
Okay,
if it was to drop. That's just because it was a great palate cleanser, had excellent shock effect for when it was released. I had been in a really bad drought, so that's why it definitely gets a 9.5 out of 10 for me for situationally, like right now.
Yeah, for the mindset you were in while watching it.
While watching it.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I'm gonna give it probably a 7.5. Again, because of the things I said, like, I love most of it, but those weak points are kind of things that, like, have bothered me about anime before. The harem style. Oh, okay, let's do this again.
Yeah.
The somewhat two-dimensional characters. They're not, you know, excellent. I mean, it's a comedy. You don't need super rounded characters, but I'd like a little bit more.
Okay.
But everything else about it just really elevates it for me.
Yeah.
The animation and the humor.
So I guess, you know, out of an average between the two of us, having an 8, 8.5, something like that out of 10, that's pretty solid.
This is a check it out. 24 episodes, half hour a piece. You know, it's worth a watch.
It's worth at least getting halfway through. I mean, most people do the 3-episode test. I'd definitely give this 12. You know, at a bare minimum, if you're someone who's still skeptical after 12, go ahead and drop it.
I'd say go to 5. You know, I'll give them more than the 3, but I'd say go to 5. And if at 5 you're like, I don't get it, I don't like it, ditch it. You know.
Fair enough. All right.
Cool. So, well, I've been Alex.
I'm Trey, and this was.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah. This was an excellent experience, guys.
All right, subscribe, like our video. See you later.